Hi, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to the new CPG imperative, delivering relevance and value through individualized experiences. I'm Lauren Gibbons, and I'm part of our marketing team here at Label Insight. And on behalf of all of us at Label Insight, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate you spending this time to listen to this on-demand webinar. And as we're all working and recording from home, we also appreciate your forgiveness if there are any technical glitches. And speaking of technical glitches, this is a re-record of a webinar that was aired live on May 14th, but due to technical issues, we were unable to share the recording of that original webinar. We'd love to hear from you. If a question pops up as you're listening or after, reach out anytime to marketing@labelinsight.com and we'll make sure your question gets answered. Your presenters are Tim Whiting and Brendan Witcher. Tim leads marketing at Label Insight. He's worked in technology his whole career prior to Label Insight, most recently working with leading brands such as AT&T, United Airlines, Starwood Hotels, Avis, Discover, Costco, and Walmart to improve their digital customer experience. Brendan is a vice president and principal analyst at Forrester, serving digital business strategy professionals. He's an expert on consumer behavior and technology trends in the commerce engagement space. Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lauren, and welcome, Brendan. We're very excited to have you again as our special guest. I must say that the picture that was just on the screen seems a bit outdated. First off, it was taken in our beautiful Chicago office that I haven't seen for months now. And these days, as maybe some of you that are listening can relate, I have a beard and a home haircut I'd prefer not to share. But on to more important matters. Thanks to all of you for joining today. We're excited to have you here listening to this re-recording. We're here to discuss how personalization can help grow your business. Why personalization and why now? Today, we'll share with you the market dynamics accelerating in our industry that have led to a massive consumer demand for relevant, value-added experiences in grocery retail. We'll discuss the lost opportunity for many brands and retailers stemming from suboptimal consumer interactions. And perhaps most importantly, we'll convey how a data-driven strategy to individualize your consumer interactions will remove consumer pain points and help you grow your business. Here's our agenda for today. First, I'm going to take you through some of the recent changes in consumer behavior we've been seeing in our industry that are creating an urgent need for more individualized interactions. Then I'll hand it off to Brendan, who has some fascinating insights to share about personalization and how brands and retailers are using data and technology to win in today's marketplace. And then we'll finish up with some recommendations for your business and how Label Insight can help you act upon those recommendations. We should take a little less than an hour today. And as Lauren mentioned, we have a path for you to ask questions by sending in an email. We'll share that again at the end. Now let's talk a little bit about the changing consumer behavior that's creating this imperative for individualized experiences. We see two trends that are contributing to consumer demand for relevant and value-added experiences in omnichannel grocery. Number one is a trend towards searching for products based on individual preferences or need states. And number two is an increasing adoption of digital search and discovery as a key element of the omnichannel path to purchase. This likely comes as no surprise to most of you that today's shopper behavior is complex and growing increasingly so. Consumers have a higher awareness of what's in the products they put in and on their bodies, and have more questions about the products they use and consume than brands and retailers have answers. Many of you on this webinar, either yourselves or someone close to you, are likely to be either actively seeking out certain things in the products you buy or actively avoiding them. In primary research we conducted with the Food Marketing Institute last year, we found that 44% of shoppers say a food allergy, sensitivity, or intolerance affects the way they shop. And that almost 50% adhere to some form of diet or health-related eating program. In a refresh study we plan to publish later this month, we've seen those figures significantly grow year over year. Now 65% adhere to a diet or health program, and 55% say their shopping is affected by allergies or intolerances. Many consumers are now more health conscious when they're shopping, and it seems to be the norm, not the exception. 50% of consumers say they're shopping more health consciously today and will continue to do so. 65% of consumers look for food and beverages with functional ingredients. And although my personal snacking habits right now don't necessarily support this concept, shoppers are looking for snacks that help them achieve their health and wellness goals. We see it everywhere in our lives, online, on TV, in the grocery store. We as a society are seemingly obsessed with how a product does or does not align to our unique need states. Whether it's alignment with a diet program like keto, support for a lifestyle like cruelty-free, or avoidance of certain ingredients like sesame or parabens, shoppers have need states they're looking to meet when considering your products. Health dominates consumer motivations. Food is used as medicine. More than 70% of shoppers indicate they're looking for specific attributes that fit their need states when choosing a brand. And tapping into these rapidly evolving shopper preferences can represent big growth opportunities for your business. Here are a couple examples. Keto is expected to grow into a $15 billion market opportunity over the next few years. And plant-based products now represent a $5 billion market in the US after growing over 11% just last year. Now, the other big change in shopper behavior is the increasing role digital plays in the path to purchase. Again, probably not surprising to anyone on this call, but the rate of change over the past few months has been astounding. Prior to COVID, e-commerce grocery was already the world's fastest growing online category. But in the last 30 days, we've seen what feels like 2 years of growth condensed into a month. Grocery apps, online ordering, curbside pickup, last mile delivery have seen record growth and record downloads. Last month, over 50% of all US households tried online grocery. Online food sales grew over 100% year over year. And last month alone, online grocery sales surpassed $5 billion. And maybe most telling, 31% of US shoppers, including 50% of millennials, say they're likely to continue with online grocery shopping after the pandemic ends. I believe we are at an inflection point in our industry that represents a long-term strategic shift, and I'm not alone. I'm sure most of you have already been actively considering and perhaps even implementing strategies to help your business take advantage of the opportunities represented by changing shopper behavior. It truly represents a huge opportunity that will help define the winners and losers in our industry for years to come. To help you take advantage of this opportunity, I'd now like to hand it over to Brendan to discuss his views on what he calls the new CPG imperative. Over to you, Brendan.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to talk to everybody today. Great to join you. Glad we could get this recording done again so everyone could get a nice clean copy of it. This is an exciting time. It doesn't seem exciting. It seems very challenging, very difficult. But actually, what's really interesting about it is it creates new opportunities for organizations that are out there to rethink, reconsider, and re-understand what it means to deliver relevance and value through individualized experiences. CPGs in particular are the kinds of companies that today could really take advantage of what's going on with the consumer. Let's talk about what was happening prior to all this, these challenges, and then how that's really going to be affected going forward, and how we can create personalization to actually help serve them as we come out of this. So first and foremost, consumers are channel agnostic. They're living in a digitized, connected, omni-channel world. Anyone that doesn't believe that obviously has been living under a rock. But I think what most people don't realize is just how connected and how interconnected we are. There are just so many ways that consumers can buy, learn, explore, understand, really get connected to our brand. And the key is that companies today don't understand that with this comes so much choice for consumers. So with so many choices, how do consumers today choose the brands they choose to do business with? This can be reflected in a number of ways, but I'm going to use an analogy just to kind of show you. So during my speeches that I used to give in person, hopefully someday again, I used to ask the audience, do you recognize this? And of course they all do. It's a three-dimensional shopping cart. And I asked the audience to imagine them going into their local grocer and there are no shopping carts anymore. And I tell them to go to the manager. You ask the manager, why are there no shopping carts? And the manager says, we couldn't figure out the ROI of a shopping cart, so we got rid of them. And then I ask the audience, how do you feel? And generally the mood or the responses are all negative. And then I ask, how many of you would continue shopping with this grocer that didn't have shopping carts? And rarely does a hand go up, of course. And to give you some sense of size of the population I'm using here, in the last 12 months prior to this, I had presented this to over 50,000 people here in the US and across the world. And so Think about that. Think about that. So little people would continue using this grocer. Now you may say, well, that's not surprising. Well, let me point out two facts about this. Number one is that this grocer has every product the consumer needs. Every product. That's why they shop there. So why is it that they were so quick? Why would all 50,000, and probably many of you on the call today, why would all 50,000 abandon a grocer they were comfortable with, they knew people with, that worked there? They do it because they know they have choice, right? They know they have choice. Right after that, usually I ask the audience, if you had to buy a coffee maker because your coffee maker broke, how many places can you buy a coffee maker? I don't get 2 or 3. I don't get 5. I don't get 10 as a response. I get hundreds, thousands, endless, infinite. Those are real responses from real people. And I mean, generally, that's all I get now. And that just shows the mind of the consumer, is that I know I can get anything, anywhere, or something similar to it, any place, which is why I don't have to settle for experiences that don't work for me. Then I remind the audience, well, how many things did this grocer screw up on and you were willing to walk away after years of doing business with them? And of course, everyone responds with 1. This is what it is. This is the state we're in today. And it continues to be the state we're in, because that hasn't really changed the consumer's mindset about this idea that experiences matter. So what is the value of a shopping cart, or what is the value of getting the experience right? It's everything. But what does it mean to get the experience right? This is the second tier of problems that we face. The first tier was thinking products and services are going to win customers, and when it's really experiences. The next tier is thinking that I have to do everything that my competitors are doing. But the reality is that each time a consumer is exposed to an improved digital experience, their expectations for all experiences are reset to a new higher level. An example of this would be, for example, let's say you go to your banking website and you have a problem with your account. And so you very quickly realize there's a virtual agent button right there. You press it, you ask a couple of questions, the virtual agent seems to take care of things, and you're off and you can do other things. But because you're so busy as a professional, you have to go to your insurance website. And so you go there, there's a problem with your account, and you notice in the right-hand corner, there's a little link that says, give us a call if you would like if you have a problem with your account. Now, are you instantly disappointed that you have to call somebody? Yes. Did you compare that insurance company to another insurance company? No. You compare them to your last digital experience. That's the way consumers shop today. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. This is all companies are under this sort of law now, this new rule of how consumers judge them. And so for CPGs, it's important to realize that everybody out there that's experiencing things from Uber to Facebook to Netflix to Target to whoever, they're the ones setting your consumers' expectations. It used to be just your competitors, and it no longer is the case. And that's why it becomes even more challenging to meet the needs of individual consumers. That's the second tier. The third tier of issues that we have and continue to have is that the feeling that if I do one thing, then I'll be able to serve everyone. Let me point something out here. This is not a terribly interesting statistic. 61% say I'm unlikely to return to a website that does not provide a satisfactory customer experience. Now, most of you could have guessed that number, but the word satisfactory is why I've included this stat, because I think it points out something very important, which is that satisfactory to each of us means something different. What does satisfactory mean? To each of us, it might be, I want a brand that understands me. Another one might be, I want a brand that provides me with the information to be an educated shopper. Another one is, I want a brand that always makes sure that if there's a discount or promotion, then I have it easily available and then I'm aware of it. There are different triggers for each of us, right? For me, I'll always pay full price. I just want to be an educated shopper. My wife, she loves coupons and discounts. And so she cares far more about saving a little bit of money. Like that's just how we're built. And so I know that everyone would think, oh, like Forrest is going to get on and tell me all the things that I need to do to be able to be a great CPG or a retailer or whatever I am. The truth of the matter is you're never going to be able to do one thing and serve everybody because, we're just built differently. And so while companies are trying to buy these tools and apply them towards customer experiences, unfortunately, it doesn't really work out that way. What ends up happening is this, right? You end up pounding a strategy against the wrong customer at the wrong time, at the wrong place. And what ends up happening is a customer gets annoyed by you. You feel like you're doing everything right. Don't get me wrong. Like if you read Internet Retailer Magazine and all these things, you're probably saying, I'm doing exactly what the pros are telling me to do. But the problem is you're not lining it up with the exact right customer. And that can create those shopping cart moments where people are saying, this doesn't work for me. and they're going to walk away. And so what can CPGs do to serve customers with such a broad range of diverse, never-changing needs today? Well, the first thing I would say is you should probably figure out a way to serve them. It can't be customer obsessed or customer centric if you don't really serve the customer. 77% of consumers have chosen, recommended, or paid more for a brand that provides a personalized service or experience. So there's gains to be had here if you get it right. And what's really interesting is that a lot of companies think, oh, personalization means a product recommendation, and it does not. Today's personalization can mean a lot of things. It can mean content on the website, personalizing physical locations, promotions, product offers. The reality is that personalization has been redefined. And keep this in mind, it's the ability to deliver relevant, value-added experiences. See how that doesn't say product recommendations? It's all about delivering relevant, value-added experiences. You can deliver relevancy, but not add value. You can also add value, but not add relevancy. You actually have to do both, right? I need to see it as relevant, and it's got to be perception. The perception is that it's of value to me. And so that really opens the aperture quite a bit for companies, right? Doesn't it? I mean, that means you can do almost anything. It allows you to personalize experiences in ways that you've never thought of before, because all you got to do is be relevant and deliver value. Now, I have this slide up here. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying this is personalization. This is more gimmicky than anything else, but I use it as just a signature of saying, you know, we want to feel like us. We want to feel like the experience is for us in some way. And so companies out there are attempting ways of doing that. That are new and interesting. But I want to call out some challenges and issues that people have when they're doing this, because frankly, I see a lot of people say they're doing it, but then they're unsuccessful. Let me show you what I mean with some of the data that I have. So we see that 89% of companies out there say we're investing in personalizing the customer experience. Unfortunately, only 40% of consumers say the information I get from brands is relevant to my tastes and interests. So which number's right? It's the 40%. It's not the 89%, it's 40%. Why? Because if you get it wrong, it's not personalization. It's only personalization if you get it right? Otherwise, it's just marketing. If you get it wrong, you could have sent me anything. You could have showed me anything. You could have done anything. The truth of the matter is we're trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between what we say we're doing and what we're actually executing on. So I know a lot of you think, oh, we're very successful with personalization. But I'm going to show you some ways in which you probably think you're being successful, but you're actually not being successful. And then don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get out of that and how to fix that going forward. So keep your mind open here, because I'm going to really show you some ways that we've been doing personalization for a while and some of the gaps that are creating that close to 90%, 40% gap that we currently have, because they simply don't meet the high benchmark, the way we're doing things for what customers are looking to see and experience. So here's flaw number one. Now, I don't want anyone to come away from this and saying, Brendan Witcher from Forrester said segmentation is dead. I'm not saying that. I'm going to show you later why that's not true, but how you use segmentation properly. But let me show you one of the flaws with segmentation that we can fix. But if I buy a toaster today, let's just say, and this could be any product. With segmentation, what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, who else bought this toaster? Maybe 10,000 other people. Let's say each of these heads represents 1,000 people. So 10,000 other people bought that toaster. Well, they also bought something else. Okay, great. Well, maybe 3,000 bought toast tongs. But what about the other 7,000? Well, maybe 2,000 bought a blender, and maybe 1,000 bought a wooden spoon, and 500 bought a coffee filter, or whatever it is, right? So we go down to the long tail. So what do we end up doing? We end up showing them toast tongs. Why? Because it was the biggest number we can get to. Right? Segmentation doesn't deal with majorities. It deals with major minorities. And I'm being generous here at 30%. A major minority can often be 5%, 6%. It's the largest number you can get to given a certain population. Okay? This is why you don't get 50, 60, 70% lifts with segmentation. This is why you get 5% lifts and 6% lifts. So what it really means, though, and what's really important to understand here is that segmentation often provides the wrong experience to most of your customers. Say you sent out an email today to 5 million people. Last year, you had 10,000 people respond. This year, you had 20,000 people. You think you're doing great, right? Ooh, 100% lift. Everyone's high-fiving, feeling good, right? Here's the problem. That email was irrelevant to 4,980,000 people. You think that's a win? That's a loss. Why? Because if you do that 136 times, which is 3 times a week, to your consumers, what do you think happens to that customer file? It starts to degrade. It starts to get weaker. It doesn't get healthy. You end up creating this slow burn of your customer file. And it gets harder and harder and harder to get the conversion rates that you got before because the file gets weaker and weaker because consumers are saying, you're not relevant to me. You're not relevant to me. I'm stop opening your emails. I may not unsubscribe, but I'm certainly not going to look at what you have to say because it never provides the experience that I want. Number two is too quickly assuming you know a customer using a single data point. Here's an experience that I personally had, and I see companies doing this all the time. They'll say something like, okay, I bought a pair of yoga pants, and suddenly you start getting experiences like this because I've been slapped into a persona that says that I'm some sort of soccer mom or a workout queen or whatever it is because I happen to buy a pair of yoga pants, right? That's what personas do. They take a single data point and they try to make us into something that we're probably not. Now, this is not only wrong, it's actually can be kind of offensive to some people, right? But more to the point, I think it's really important for anybody that either has or doesn't have a background in statistics. Let me say something to you. If you take a simple statistics class, even high school level, the first thing you learn is that single data points are not statistically significant. In other words, what they're saying when they say that is that when you know one thing about the customer, it doesn't mean you know everything about the customer. In fact, it argues that you really know nothing about the customer. When I worked at Guitar Center, I had a strategy there. We often would say the last product purchase, we'll email them for the next 6 months. Well, guitar players would often buy drumsticks, right? They would have spent $40,000 on guitar equipment. Then they buy a pair of drumsticks, and all of a sudden we're talking about drums for the next 6 months because it's the last thing. And of course, they didn't buy again because we're not talking about the relevant category for them, right? And so this is the problem, is that single data points really can throw you in the wrong direction. The last thing I see companies doing is this, is they end up saying, okay, what's the low-hanging fruit? What's the things we can do quickly? And so on Monday morning, everybody comes in and says, what have we got? So we know the day of the week, we have the picture of the customer, and hey, we know their birthday. Okay, so we start launching these things like crazy so that we're done by Friday so we can check the box real quick and all high five again because we have personalization in a week. But here's the problem with this. I've been, just by example, I've been an analyst for about 6 years, and I listened to hundreds of earnings calls. I have never once gotten on an earnings call and the CEO or anybody said, we started saying happy birthday to the customer and sales went up 5%, right? There's a reason for that, because we don't need to be told happy birthday. We don't need to know that it's Friday, and I don't need to know what my face looks like, right? This is, you may say, well, what's the harm? What's the harm in all this? Well, remember something. Not only are you wasting the customer's time, but there were PowerPoints built. There were steering committees. I'll bet the CEO took a week to try to figure out what picture was going to go with this happy birthday message. What they didn't do was work on real personalization. There was an opportunity cost by not working on something that would really matter. And now they've checked the box on something that's not going to move the needle for them, right? And so it is a waste of everyone's time, both the customers and yours, to personalize experiences that provide no real value to a customer's journey. Translated, to provide the reason that I'm there. Personalize the experience around why I'm there. These are not the reasons I'm at your website or on your app. Find out why I'm there and serve me in that way. So what are companies doing? Well, the digital leaders today are helping organizations prepare for the next evolution of personalization, which is what I encourage you to do as well. This will rely more on the pillars of individualization rather than segmentation. Second reminder, segmentation is not dead, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So how do we get to that? Well, first we had to understand the role data plays, because lots of companies out there say that we need to be customer obsessed, right? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody says that. Customer centric, customer obsessed. The reality is most people think we can do this through opinions. I want you to think for a minute before we keep going here about how many parts of your business are being run by opinions. Let's actually make that a statement. Your business run by opinions. As an analyst, if I walked in the door and I said, hey, I think you should run your business using opinions, you would throw me out of your building. Right? This is not a class that you take in business school. This is not advice that we give. And yet this is exactly how we run our business. The truth of the matter is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And companies today are failing because they're failing to use data. W.R. Deming had it right. So how do you use data? How do you do that? Because the key is to create all these great customer experiences that you hear about in the Wall Street Journal, you hear Amazon doing, you hear everybody else doing that are so cool and interesting. That's just on the surface. They usually do 10 to 15 things underneath that. And all of it, or most of it, has something to do with the ability to effectively and efficiently operationalize data that actually enables that. So here's what I'm going to say, point blank. I know you want to do the sexy stuff. That's fine. But working with data, the unsexy stuff and the hard stuff, that's a requirement. It's a prerequisite. So think of data as the new sexy, right? Because it is. That's what gets you to where you want to go. And that's the things you need to work on. Because in 2020 versus 2014, we need to finish the sentence, and say, we need to be customer obsessed, which requires us to be data led. Okay. Now, digitally native companies collect lots of customer data, but traditional brands tend to be one step removed from direct customer insights. And you all know that, right? You know that it's difficult. It is difficult to get close to the customer as a brand. But what brands are doing is they're starting to realize, look, we're just never going to overcome this direct connectivity between us and the retailers. We want more granularity and performance data and customer insights. And retailers, they want to share sales and performance data, but they don't want to they consider customer IP insights as their own IP, and they don't want to share information. And even if they do, they won't do it for long. Especially if they're not seeing it as a benefit to them. So what are companies doing? Brands are looking for third-party connectors. Third-party connector technologies that get them closer to the customer, knowing that this just isn't going to happen most of the time through the retailer. How do we get connected to the customer? That is really key. That is really key. And that's why brands today who are being innovative and thinking about doing things, they're not looking necessarily at innovative technologies. They're more looking at innovative ways of approaching the customers. And to do that, they need to learn about the customer. And the key is that you can't think the customer doesn't want to share with you, because the reality is they really do. They really are comfortable with that. 80% of US online adults say they would feel comfortable sharing at least some kind of information in order to have their shopping experience personalized. We love talking about ourselves. We love feeling like something special for us. Don't be confused by that Facebook nonsense that happened last year. The reality is, nobody had a problem with a free social media website collecting data. They had a problem with the way that it was used, that it didn't serve the people that were sharing the data. See, that's the problem, right? That's what really everyone got up in arms about. No one got concerned that people were sharing data so that my parents could see pictures of their grandkids, right? So how do you do that? Well, you do that by providing value, the opposite of what Facebook did in that situation, right? You have to create value, and the customer will be willing to give you data. This is a golden rule that you need to follow. Here's what it looks like in the real world. I know we're talking about CPGs today, but I'm going to show you something that's really easy to understand, okay? Take the concept of Stitch Fix, right? The concept of Stitch Fix is that you sign up and they'll find items that work for you. They'll do the shopping for you and send you an outfit based on your preferences. Now, I don't know how many of you have gone through this sign-up process, but I have. And it's about a 30-minute sign-up process. You got to bring a sandwich to this thing because it just takes forever to sign up for it. I encourage you to at least go through the sign-up process and see what I'm talking about. Now, here's the interesting point. Did you know that 80% of people finish this sign-up process? A full 80%. Think about how many times your UX professionals have said, we need to make sign-up quick and easy and simple, no more than 5 clicks, 5 boxes, right? Here's a sign-up process, 30 minutes. And 80% of people finish it, over 80%. Why is that? Because they know the value at the end of it. So I would agree with your UX professionals, like you shouldn't make sign up very long unless you're offering something of value up front for signing up. That's the key, right? I would argue that if Amazon wanted to ask 45 minutes to sign up for Prime, I'll bet people would do it, right? Because they get so much value out of it. So the question you need to ask yourself is, how do we, and this is the strategy you need to develop, and I'm going to talk about a simple way of doing that later, but how do we learn a certain thing about the customer so we can react to that certain thing and learn more about the customer? Because the reality is lots of you out there probably say, oh, I know the customer really well. I bet you don't, because this is what a 360-degree view of the customer looks like today. It is much different than it used to look in the past, okay? It is no longer just age, gender, ethnicity, income, last click, last product purchased. It's companies today are learning about attitudes, context, sentiment, even external information like third-party data, behavioral responses, the profile signups, even the tech they use. Context is probably one of the more important ones. Time, location, situation, journey, activity, right? When's the right time to talk to me? This is that old marketing thing, right? Right time, right place, right product. This is the idea, is that you're really learning about the customer in a deep way. Now, here's what I would challenge you all to do. Go out to I'm assuming you all have some access to this. Go out and ask for your customer database. Go and look at it. And don't look at the rows. Those aren't important. But look at the column headers. What do you have? What do you have about your customer and your customer profile? I'll bet you got like age, gender, maybe gender. You certainly have address and name. Zip code, possibly. Last product purchase, most likely. Other than that, probably nothing. Probably nothing. You probably know very little about the customer. Maybe if they're part of a loyalty program, right? That doesn't tell you much about them. It just means they're part of a program. Do you really know your customer? This is where personalization you're failing at most likely. It's not necessarily about the engagement strategy. It's most likely about the data strategy. because companies today need to move from data verse, which is I don't use data, to data aware, understanding the value of it, data driven, which I'll get to in a minute, and then to data led. Now, what's the difference between data led and data driven? Notice that data led says I avoid preconceived notions and use data to drive strategic decisions. That's these companies here. They don't jump in and say, we're going to make strategic decisions and then go find data to prove that we're right, which is what I see a lot of companies do. And I used to do it too when I worked for Guitar Center. I used to support the initiatives of my executives. But the truth of the matter is you need to use data that leads you rather than just use data to prove that you should be doing something you've already decided on last week, right? Because otherwise, I guarantee you, data can prove anything. As an analyst, I can tell you, I can prove anything with data if I wanted to. It's a very strange position to be in, but I can prove anything, but I don't want to. I want to prove the right thing, right? But unfortunately, most of the time when we serve a master, we're going to end up finding data that proves that what they wanted is the right move to make. So now that we've set the base and I've tried to hammer home how important that data strategy is, let's look at what it takes to move on to this next generation of personalization, which is individualization that is built on 4 unique characteristics. Number 1, customers are identified and treated as individuals using rich customer profiles. Notice I didn't say personas, I said profiles. And this gets back to that printing out that database that you have and looking at the column headers and saying, we really don't know that much about this customer. So we really can't say much to this customer. Can't create great personalization for this customer. Number 2, you have to be able to use customer data that is assessed in real time and dynamically calculates intent. What do I need right now? An example would be from retail. Let's say you walk into a store, maybe in a couple of weeks, you walk into a store and all of a sudden, before you even get started, people start throwing products at you, like a sweater and a blender. I mean, you just stand there like, what is happening, right? No, they don't do that. Why don't they do that? Because they don't know why you're there. What's the first thing someone asks you when you walk into a store if you talk to an associate? They say, how may I help you, right? That's key. Why? Because they want to address what your needs are right now. That doesn't change in a digital environment. What do I need right now? And that doesn't mean just from products. It means, do I need to learn about it? Do I have a customer service issue? Do I care about the nutritional information? Like, what is it now? What is my intent? What is the intent of the visit? The intent of the touch? Because I'm taking time out of my life to engage you. It's not necessarily to buy. So understanding intent is very, very, very important. Third is delivering content equally across every screen and channel. That's not terribly interesting. Everybody does that. But let me say that this sets me up for this next point, which is the idea of creating connected experiences across technologies. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is there's this invisible third wall that people don't even realize exists, right? So in a single experience, let's say I use some sort of functionality on your website that gets me to a position where I really like a certain product. And maybe I use a vendor for that solution, right? But then I continue through the website and start exploring and doing all these other things. What are the odds that you start recommending or talking to me about the products that I used in that tool that you got from that third-party vendor? Very likely not. Why? Because it's 2 different systems, right? It's the same channel, it's the same screen, but it's 2 different kind of technologies and they don't really talk to each other. And so what organizations need to do is build the pipes. You need to build the pipes that connect data from one source of gathering that information into another system that allows it to operate in real time. You need to create that consistent experience across the entire customer journey, even within channels and within screens. Okay, so I said earlier that I would say segmentation is not dead, and it is not. What I'm pointing out, though, it is not the North Star for personalization anymore. The companies that I'm working with today, and there's a lot of them in the top Fortune 500 that are working towards individualization. These are masters of engaging customers as segments of one in real time by listening, capturing, measuring, assessing, and addressing intent across every enterprise touch point. Okay. Now, there are certain points in the customer journey where you don't want to or can't do personalization. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? What people think is this is a pyramid for the entire organization, and it's not. What you should look at is every individual touch point and say, where can we do individualization? Where can we do segmentation? Where can we do basic segmentation? Where can we do what we do? And that's how you build a strategy, is saying, how do we improve individual touch points? This is not a Monday to Friday activity. This is a 3-year journey for most companies. But when you get to it, you really are such a better experience for the customer. And that's why, as we learned earlier, they choose your brand. That's really what it comes down to. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, isn't that just personalization? Isn't it just reframing the word personalization? No, I'm not. Because personalization can be delivered in 3 different ways: customization, segmentation, and individualization. And obviously this will be available to you after this webinar. So you're more than happy to come back and look at this. And this is pretty clear and straightforward. I'm not going to go through it, but you may do different things at different times in the customer journey. And that's why you use that customer journey map to kind of understand where's the right place and time to do each of these types of personalization. What's the intent of doing it? What are the outcomes we're looking for? And how do we measure it? Now, speaking of measurement, it's really important to understand the use of analytics. A lot of companies today have lots of data. They sometimes get to insights, although those sometimes are just opinions, as I said earlier. But once you have those things, what do you do with it? Typically, what you would be using is some sort of predictive tool. Here's what you could do. What you really want, though, are prescriptive tools. Here's what you should do. Because predictive tools basically allows you to put in a bunch of variables and say, all right, this is the outcome if I do this, this is the outcome if I do this, this is the outcome if I do that. A prescriptive tool will look at all the data for you and say, given your outcome that you want, whether it's top line revenue, customer conversion, bottom line margin, and all those are different goals, by the way. This is the combination of things you should do for this customer. That is really the promise of AI and machine learning going forward. I mean, this is really where it's going to kick in a lot. And that's the ability to look at, I'll give you an example. When I was head of marketing at Harry & David, I had 2,000 variables to work with for our catalog search. 2,000. You think I could have tested them all, every combination? No way. So there was no way for me to get to the best outcome that I wanted, right? There was just no way to do it. So prescriptive tools are what we need today to be able to do that. So now you're thinking to yourself, great. Now tell me how to avoid creeping out the customer there, Brendan, because that's what I'm really afraid of. All right. So let me give you the golden rule for not creeping out customers. And this is, I know you're just on here listening as a single individual, maybe with a couple people from your team, but share this with the rest of your organization. Okay. The way to do this is to make sure you put the value up front. Kind of hinted at it earlier. So if I ask a bunch of marketers, I think it's a good idea, or told them, I think it's a good idea to ask customers what their body type is. Marketers will tell me I'm crazy, right? Like no one's going to tell you that, right? It's too creepy. But see how it's okay here? Because I'm showing the value in here. The customer has a choice. They can do this or not do this. And if they want to give me their body type, then I can identify brands that fit for them and see a personalized fit, right? Like this is a good example of how to deliver that value up front so that it is very clear. So let me give you the golden rule, which is be overt when collecting data, which is the example that I just showed you, but covert in using data to deliver personalization. Let's say I say my body type is extra large or whatever. I don't need you to remind me through the entire journey that I said that to you. You just need to give me the experience, right? So you need to kind of flip the switch. And a lot of companies have a hard time flipping the switch. They're either too covert on both sides or too overt on both sides. Be completely overt when collecting data, completely covert in using data to deliver personalization. Just deliver the great experience. You're not going to creep out a customer if you just deliver an experience for them that is based on the data they've given you, okay? Because they're not going to know that it's personalized. Good personalization doesn't look like personalization, just looks like a great experience. Now, what steps do CPGs need to take to become data-led masters of personalization? So here's where I would advise most of you to go based on where I think you're probably sitting today. First, assess what kind of brand you are, uncover what customers value from you, and build experiences around that. So, these are 4 different brands that it is pulled, and quite frankly, they're just very different. Nutella is more cult and frequent, right? Land O'Lakes is more commoditized and frequent. Perrier is more cult frequent, and Aquafina is more commoditized frequent. So the uniqueness of your brand and the frequency of the purchase matters a lot about personalization. If you're high frequency, you could probably have more opportunities to learn about the customer. If you're low frequency, then that's when you really need to make each interaction just create so much opportunity to learn about the customer, because you're just not going to get that many chances. If you're cult frequent, you're going to have customers that are far more willing to share data with you through interesting experiences that are more about brand love. But if you're commoditized, it's got to be really explicit about the value that you're going to deliver and say, why would I give Land O'Lakes my information? Well, the value's got to be super clear, because they just don't love Land O'Lakes as much as I love Nutella. Sorry, Land O'Lakes, it's true. So what's number 2? Remember, engagement strategies are the sexy car interior, but the quality of the data, the gas, determines the performance. This, again, is where I see most organizations failing. They have an engagement strategy that is 100 pages thick of a PowerPoint, but their data strategy could sit on a Post-it note. And it usually involves, we put everything in a data lake, or we start with the data we have. That is not a data strategy, okay? A data strategy is the ability to understand, if we knew X, we could do Y. Now, this is an exercise I actually sit down with Fortune 500 companies and do this exercise. I have executives in the room with Post-its in front of them, if you can believe that. And we say, and I have them fill out at least 5 of these cards. And I say, if we knew, and then they fill in X, then they put in, we could do Y. And sometimes it's better to do, we want to do Y, so we need to get X, whatever order you want to do it in. And then I take all these Post-its, you know, a lot of them, usually about 50, and I stick them up on the wall and I say, there you go. I just started your data strategy. That is an actual data strategy, because it's about getting data to deliver personalization, right? This is the key to a data strategy. Number 3, stay in the box of the right time, right place, right customer, but go outside the box and using D2C connector technologies. This is an example I'll just show real quick, like Scope. And if you might be familiar with this on the right side, this is Tinder. That would make a good partnership. If I have a Tinder date coming up in 30 minutes, maybe I get a reminder from, you know, Tinder that says, hey, you know, Scope is available at your local 7-Eleven. You know, come on by and get it. Great. Like, this is how, I'm not making this stuff up. This is the stuff that's really happening today, right? Because it's the right time, right place, right customer. Think outside the box about the delivery mechanism, right? Now, not every company should be doing this with Tinder, right? Bush's Baked Beans doesn't need to have a Tinder strategy, right? But they should have a strategy maybe for where people do make that consideration purchase, like at the grocery aisle. Like, this makes a lot of sense. So number 4, as you personalize the customer journey, look for ways to deliver continuous, seamless experiences for customers. I'm sure many of you have an omnichannel strategy and a personalization strategy going on. Bring these 2 teams together, make sure they're talking. It's not worth it to create omnichannel journeys that aren't personalized, and it's not worth it to create personalized journeys that don't cross the channels. And so these 2 teams really need to talk and learn about themselves and what they're doing. Finally, use personalization to solve customer pain points before focusing on moments that surprise and delight. The reality is that we don't get surprised and delighted. I wish we did, but we don't. Let me give you an example. Many of you probably drive cars, and I want you to imagine the last time you drove in your car. Did you get out of your car, turn around, look at your car, and say, thank you, car. Thank you for getting me where I need to go. I love you so much. You're such a wonderful car. No, nobody does that. Only Tesla owners do that. Nobody does that, right? And so what do you need? What would happen to you, though, is if this car broke down on where you need to go? Would you have some choice words for that car? Would you have something to say to that car? Would you remember that moment? Yes, you would. That's because we are far more influenced by pain than by pleasure, right? And that's not me. That's every study ever done about human beings. And so you may say, well, so what? Like, what do you mean by that? What I mean is, you know, what's pain? What I don't need a virtual reality solution for Bush's Baked Beans. That doesn't make any sense, right? But let's say that I'm getting, you know, not to knock Bush's Baked Beans, but I'm not saying this about them, but what if they're sending out emails that are irrelevant? That's a pain point for the customer, right? I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting anything. I'm wasting my time. So use personalization to solve customer pain points. Find out what those pain points are. Remember I talked about a data strategy? Something that I really encourage those executives to do is write down a pain point in the X column. If we knew what the pain point was, we could solve that pain point by doing Y. Like, this is where you need to go rather than surprising delight, because that's what's going to move the needle for you. We avoid pain, right? Like, we don't get surprised and delighted. We rarely go towards pleasure. And so this is key. At the end of the day, we're just trying to create these great shopping cart moments for consumers. Remember the experiences, remember individualization, share the golden rule of personalization, and deliver those experiences for consumers that they're expecting, not because of what your competitors are doing, but because of what they're experiencing out in the world. It's a digitized world, and consumers want value, especially today. I hope you're well or safe, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you. Tim, you want to take it away?
Hey, thanks, Brendan. Thanks for sharing the insights and recommendations. Better the second time around. You know, this concept of individualization is an important one. And what I like to do is tie it back to the consumer trends we discussed at the beginning of the webinar. The move to online shopping is fundamentally redefining a grocery shopper's path to purchase. If you think about it, for the last 100 years, the point of sale has been executed upon in brick and mortar retail. Shelves are always stocked there. Well, maybe not with disinfectant wipes the last few weeks, but we live in a physical world where we could see everything in the store. We could shop by aisle, by shelf, by category. We walked up and down through the store the way brands and retailers designed the experience for us. Today, though, everything has changed. We want to create our own personalized experiences. The new point of sale is really the point of search. And in a search-driven online world, your digital inventory is only stocked as effectively as your ability to relate your products to the relevant need states of your shoppers. Without it, your digital shelf is empty. Because we don't shop by category anymore. We shop by need state. We shop by attribute. We expect our digital store to be laid out, personalized to our needs by the attributes that matter to us. As we highlighted earlier, even before COVID, online grocery was booming, up 35% in compounded annual growth rate from the previous year to $26 billion. And based upon what we're seeing in recent months, these pre-COVID projections may get blown out of the water. More shoppers than ever before are searching for products online. And 80% of these searches for food and beverage products online are organic and unbranded. That means shoppers are increasingly searching for attributes. They're putting their need states first and brand preference second. To maximize revenue growth in an online world where shoppers are searching for products by attributes, search needs to be a great individualized shopper experience. As Brendan mentioned, we should think of consumers as segments of one. Today, though, grocery search and discovery is broken. Here's a real example of a recent search on Amazon for peanut-free that returns peanut butter and peanuts and peanut-filled products. A search for sugar-free returns bags of cane sugar. The examples of irrelevant search results go on and on. Perhaps worse, the list of searches that return 0 or severely limited results are just as rampant. And it's across all retailers: Kroger, Costco, Fresh Market, Whole Foods, Albertsons, Walmart. Shoppers are seeking out ketogenic, gluten-free, low sodium, paraben-free, sustainable, no artificial ingredients, Whole30, paleo, nutrient-dense, minimally processed, whole grain, and on and on and on. This broken experience negatively impacts the trust consumers have in a retailer or manufacturer, causing them to seek out other channels or try new brands. It's an enormous missed opportunity to capture the loyalty and spend of shoppers willing to buy more of the products that meet their individualized needs. We've done extensive research and analysis combining consumer keyword search data from top channels like Amazon, Walmart, and Kroger with our database of more than 500,000 CPG products and the more than 24,000 need state attributes we're able to identify for each. And we've discovered some astonishing insights. Here's one for keto, that $15 billion market opportunity mentioned earlier. Keto is the 5th most searched product attribute across all grocery categories online. On Amazon alone, ketogenic was searched for more than 750,000 times last month. But 98% of the products that qualify to be found as ketogenic fail to make that claim. Think about that. For one specific shopper need state in 1 month, in one retail channel, there are hundreds of thousands of missed opportunities to deliver an individualized shopper experience and reap the monetary rewards. And our research shows that the missed opportunity to tap into these shopper needs is widespread. In fact, more than half of food products fail to claim their single most searched for attribute. And by failing to claim their top attribute, every single one of these UPCs, each one of these specific products, missed an opportunity to be discovered close to 90,000 times on one channel, Amazon, in Q4 alone. You can think about it this way. There are ketogenic, high protein, sugar-free, gluten-free, vegan, low carb, healthy, sulfate-free, alcohol-free, paraben-free products consumers are searching for by the hundreds of millions based upon their individual needs that are going undiscovered because they're failing to make the claim at the digital shelf. For a brand with just 100 products in their portfolio on Amazon alone, simply by failing to claim one attribute, they're missing out on more than 35 million opportunities to be found. For a brand with 1,000 products, that number jumps to more than 350 million digital out of stocks, just on Amazon alone, and just for one attribute. When you consider that nearly 90% of food products fail to claim at least one of their 3 most searched for attributes, the size of this opportunity becomes even more pronounced. And the missed opportunity to tap into individual shopper needs is pervasive. 71% of the top 3 search for product attributes in the juice category go unclaimed by products that qualify for them. Vegan is the 2nd most searched for product attribute in the snack category, but is unclaimed 76% of the time. The list goes on and on. To put a finer point on it, we've analyzed the missed opportunity to deliver on and monetize individual shopper experiences for hundreds of brands. By the way, we just published a new research report that breaks down the top 100 brands in terms of missed searches and revenue. And at the end of the webinar, we'll tell you how you can get that. But here's a cut of the top 25 in terms of missed annual searches on Amazon alone. On Amazon alone, brands are missing out on hundreds of millions of searches and millions of dollars of revenue by failing to be responsive to the individual needs of online shoppers. Well, I hope so far we made a compelling case that it's important to consider individualized shopping experiences in your growth strategy. And that one way to activate individualized shopper experiences is to tap into the individual search criteria important to your shoppers. Makes sense. This is precisely how Label Insight supports its brand and retail customers. We were founded by two brothers whose dad suffered a heart attack. To get well, his doctor prescribed a low sodium, low fat, free of trans and saturated fats and artificial ingredients diet. At first blush, these 5 dietary requirements seemed simple enough to our co-founder. He had just graduated from college, interestingly enough, with a degree in nutrition. Surely, with his knowledge, he could build a grocery list to help his dad stay well. But what he quickly discovered, and what all of us can relate to, was that finding the information he needed from packaging to help his dad proved impossible. In order to answer what seemed like 5 simple questions, he realized tens of thousands of other questions needed to be answered through deep analysis of every single ingredient and nutrient on package. And so that's what he did. He began walking the aisles of the grocery store, picking up every product off the shelf and writing down every single piece of information on the label. Every nutrient, ingredient, allergen, claim, certification, warning statement. Literally every single piece of data, so he could go home at night and research it to make sense of it in order to help his dad. Over time, he developed increasingly sophisticated ways to collect, catalog, and make sense of the data. And fast forward to Label Insight today. As we saw, 55% of Americans are affected by food allergy, sensitivity, or intolerance, and 65% adhere to some form of diet or health-related eating program. And with the growth of e-commerce accelerating the role of individual need states and the role it plays and how consumers shop, the same problem we set out to solve so many years ago is important today as it ever was. But to address this opportunity, the label's not enough. There's insufficient space and information to answer all the questions consumers have about the products they use and consume, or to provide the insight to personalize an experience for a consumer with a specific set of needs. That's why identifying what we call a product's DNA is so important. Label Insight's technology automates derivation of 24,000 attributes for a single UPC. And a significant number of these attributes are product details otherwise hidden beneath complex scientific information on package or lacking altogether. It's latent data, not explicitly stated on the label. It's crucial to meeting these individual demands of consumers. Our technology identifies a raw piece of information from the label and asks a bunch of questions. For each ingredient, Label Insights technology asks, hey, what is this? Is it a flavor, a sweetener, a color, preservative? Is it natural or artificial? What allergen or tolerance properties does it have? What's its function? What is it used? Why is it used in products like this? As Brendan highlighted, building rich customer profiles with data that you can activate across channels is a key to delivering relevant and value-added individual experiences. We enable you to accomplish this by tapping into your product's DNA to improve product discoverability for shoppers based on their individual need states. Take gluten-free. There are about 700 products manufactured for sale in the US that contain gluten-free in the product title. Many e-commerce sites rely solely on the data contained within the product title to power search, which means that across most channels, consumers aren't likely to find more than a few hundred gluten-free items when shopping online. If you add to that the CPG products that make a gluten-free claim or carry a certification, you're up to about 60,000 products in the US. But compare that to the total number of products that qualify as gluten-free based on ingredient analysis, and that's more than 170,000 products, or 300% more discoverable products. That's the power of Label Insight. And the same is true for hundreds of attributes like heart healthy, low sodium, artificial free. Getting this right means a significant return on investment for brands and retailers. Label Insight recently helped a leading snack brand boost conversion on Amazon by more than 10%, simply by adding a previously unclaimed product attribute to its product title and description. We also recently helped a top 10 retailer identify how to increase the number of discoverable products on their faceted search by close to 12 times. Think about that. A simple change led to a fully stocked digital shelf matched to individual need states. This is why Label Insight is the industry's most trusted product data solution across retailers, brands, government agencies like the FDA and USDA, and leading service providers like IRI, Nielsen, One World Sync, and Catalina. More than 350 retail banners and 5,500 brands rely on Label Insight's patented data solution that provides insight into more than 500,000 UPCs via a database of 9 million product claims, over 400,000 ingredients, 200,000 nutrients, and 24,000 attributes per product that covers 99% of all online consumer CPG searches. Well, that's what we have to share with you today. Here are some key takeaways from the webinar. Number one, more consumers are moving to online grocery and looking for products that fulfill their individual needs. And being able to deliver individualized experiences has become a strategic imperative. Individualizing experiences powered by data that delivers relevant and value-added content across channels is a key to your success. Today, it's a poor experience for consumers across so many channels whose digital shelves are depleted, understocked, or full of irrelevant results that erode consumer trust and fail to capture revenue. So by understanding their product DNA to claim the attributes their product qualify for, brands will be discovered at a higher rate and shoppers will be presented with a relevant, individualized experience. And Label Insight can help. Contact us and we'll set up a free consultation to share the insights we have about your brand. So Lauren, back over to you to close us out today.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Brendan, for sharing your insights again. And thanks to all of you for tuning in to this replay. If you have any questions, you'd like a demo, or you'd like to get a copy of that activating attributes report that Tim mentioned, email marketing@labelinsight.com. We hope you stay safe and healthy. Bye, everyone.